All right, this is my first time running this workshop, so it might be a little rusty, but let's see how it goes. So today I'll be talking about how to prepare for LeetCode style questions effectively and efficiently. So to do that, I'll be talking about the 80-20 rule and spaced repetition, and that should help you save a lot of time and also focus on the most important things. I do have a workbook that I prepared quickly to follow along. So I'm going to paste this in the chat. That has every link in here and a whole bunch of information. So I'll be showing you that and walking through that later. So definitely open that up in your browser. Okay, so you might have, seems like I know 50% of the people here at the moment, but for the people who don't know me, you might be wondering why learn from me. So a little bit about me, my background. I have a degree and a master's that I got in computer science in Melbourne in Australia. And then after that, I went to Tokyo to do a PhD in advanced algorithms. And during that time, I was obsessed with Donald Knuth's The Art of Computer Programming, Volume 4A. And I found an error in that, so I ended up getting a Knuth reward check. And over time, though, like doing a PhD, living away from home, I got a little tired of being a poor student. So I decided to interview, and I was preparing for interviews a lot, like 6 months daily, many questions, like probably 8 hours. It's maybe overkill actually, but I ended up getting a job at Cruise, which is a self-driving car company in San Francisco. I'm on the routing team, and I'm currently a senior engineer. And while working here, I've interviewed 100 or more candidates. But also, while I was teaching in Melbourne, while I was studying in Melbourne, I was teaching. I was teaching computer science, algorithms, and so on. And then during my PhD, I was invited to Stockholm to teach a similar course at Hyper Island. It was mainly about computing theory, statistics, data analysis, and stuff like that. I also really like to write about data structures and algorithms on my blog. And yeah, so I have this like kind of desire to teach, I guess. And so recently I've been trying to make a course to help people prepare for programming interviews, because I was thinking about all this stuff. This is great. It's kind of abstract. How can I help people with their actual life, reduce their stress, help them make money, and so on. And so that's what I'm focusing on right now. And I'm also working at Cruise at the same time. And this is a preview of the content that's in my upcoming course. All right, so what am I going to cover? So in the sign up field, I asked people to write what they're interested in learning about. And here are a few of the answers that stuck out to me. So one of them was a graduating senior who had a job lined up, but they were worried about the economy at the moment. And they felt like they should, so they had a job lined up, but they felt like they should keep their interviewing skills up to speed. That makes a lot of sense, especially if you look at levels.fyi, and this isn't to scare anyone or anything, but there were 140,000 layoffs just in the Bay Area and New York and stuff like that this year. That's quite a lot of tech people being laid off. I mean, there's a lot of people that are getting jobs too, though. So it's not to put a downer spin on this, but definitely may as well have a backup plan. Another person wrote that they are a software developer who took a break from the industry, and now they're trying to get back in. And so they want to find a way to keep algorithms fresh. I guess that they, leaving that field for a while and coming back, it's easy to get rusty on that. And definitely I've been the same sometimes. And then the third person that stood out to me that said that they are going for a second round. They're doing a second round of preparation for their FANG interviews, and they're going to do those in February. And they wanted some tips on how to streamline their time to prepare for the tough questions during interview. So I guess like same as any practice, if you throw a whole bunch of time at it, you'll get to a level that you want to get to, but really the time matters. And so if you can work out the shortest path to that level of performance, that'd be great. Okay, so just to elaborate on that a little bit more, I think this touches on everything that people have said, but if I can help you become someone in the after column, then I will call this workshop a success. And so a lot of software engineers, they kind of study for programming interviews when they want a new job. A lot of them don't do that at all. They just kind of wing it. If they are studying, though, they'll spend 3 to 6 months like I did before, and they'll burn themselves out and they'll forget it, or they'll just kind of give up and they'll just stay at their current job. And they don't usually have a system. They just kind of open up LeetCode questions and go down the list, maybe easy to hard or something like that, or maybe even just frequency ordered, which is also not the optimal path. But yeah, it's like, no, sorry, one other aspect of that is that they don't repeat those things, so they end up forgetting them. And they are probably focusing on low ROI things. And finally, because of all that, because of the hassle of preparing the burnout, going through and developing a system is also kind of hard. They avoid preparing altogether. And then they get into this position where they stay at a job that they don't like. They aren't negotiating their pay. They aren't getting other offers. And they know that if they are laid off, they're going to have to prepare to find another job. But you, after this workshop and after preparing a little bit more and practicing this stuff, you will prepare before you need a new job, and you'll stay prepared because it's actually kind of fun. And you'll see why later. You'll spend 2 months. This is like, there will still be a kind of spike, but it's a lot gentler than a 3 to 6 month spike of effort. So you spend 2 months, and that's an hour every day, not the 8 hours that I was talking about before. And you do that once, and then every year you'll do a few hours. It depends on how you're doing, but you'll do a few hours instead of repeating this process every time you need a job. So it definitely helps with burnout. It definitely helps you succeed and not just give up. You'll have a repeatable system that will tell you what to study to give you the highest ROI and when to study it. And just, I found personally, just having that system that just tells me that removes so much friction that it's actually kind of fun, and it just makes me want to do it every day. So I've developed a habit doing that now. And finally, because you'll be doing this, you'll be ready at any time to do an interview. That means you can interview for fun. You can get a read on what your market value is. You can get offers, even if you don't intend to work for those companies. And you can use those offers to negotiate raises or promotions at your current job or with other companies, and then actually change jobs. And if you do get laid off, then you're ready to interview and you can have backup plans. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to do this. I don't know, like, so I wanted to do some napkin math. It's kind of hard to put numbers to this. And maybe this slide comes in a little too early, but with the core set of LeetCode problems we find, it's around 64 hours to do them all once. And using spaced repetition, which we'll also talk about, they become 95%, well, they become ingrained in your memory 95% faster than they would otherwise. And so if you're measuring the entire time of like memorizing it forever, then you have that initial 64-hour count plus 5% time on top of that, gives you 67.2 hours across your career. Career being how long this is useful for. So maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, depends on if you're staying as an engineer or move to management or whatever. So assuming 5 years, it could be more, then that's 13.4 hours per year of practice on average. So it's about 2 weeks, 1 hour a day that you're preparing, which is really not that much. compensation-wise, I found some research that said that if you job hop, then you usually get around a 30% raise, or you can at least. 30. This sounds too good to be true, kind of, but it's like 30% of people get a 30% raise, or they get a 10% raise. It's kind of that range. Most people get around a 5% raise on average while staying at their job. And the median tenure of a software engineering job is 2 years. So if we just take a arbitrary window of time there, 4 years, we end up with a 5% raise 4 times if they're not preparing, which gives them a 22% raise over 4 years. But if you, every 2 years, you job hop, and hopefully you feel like you can do that because you prepare continuously, then you'll get your 5% raise twice, and you'll get your 30% raise twice. You end up with a 179% raise over 4 years. So by shopping around, I mean, you can even stay there, right? But having another offer lets you negotiate that with your current company. So you get a 157% higher salary. I don't have real numbers on this, and I'd be happy to hear other people's estimations, but I think this is a right ballpark. Okay, so what won't be covered in this workshop? So I'm not sure how long I've been taking already, so maybe I need to hurry up. But what won't be covered is how to solve these problems. There's a lot of great material out there. The grokking course has this nice way of like factorizing that into patterns. LeetCode has the discussion forum, which has some really nice solutions there, and I recommend checking that after you solve them. I'm also not covering system design and behavioral interviews. They're very important parts of interviews, but LeetCode constitutes like 70%, maybe 60%, depending on your seniority of interviews, and it's the easiest to gain. So let's just focus on that first. And I also do an 80-20 analysis, which I don't cover the method of here, but contact me if you want to know how to do that. Okay, so yeah, this is what I'll be covering in a moment. 80-20 rule, spaced repetition, how to set up Anki. This is a workshop, so I'll be asking you to follow along with me. Also, I think Larry, who just joined, hang on, let me paste that. There's a workbook that you should click that'll have links to be able to follow along. Whoops. Yeah, then I will do a demo of how to use it, and then I'll give you some time to use it to get used to that and do a problem by yourself, and then come back and ask me questions, and then we'll wrap up. All right, 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. This is pretty common. I imagine a lot of people have heard of this, but yeah, who can explain to everyone what this is?
80% of the result can be had from 20% of the effort.
Yeah, 20% of the input can get you 80% of the result, right? And that was discovered by Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist in 1964. And it shows up everywhere, like the yield on trees in a farm and so on, like 80% of the apples comes from 20% of the trees. Also, definitely in code, 80% of the runtime of code is in 20% of the code. And it also definitely shows up in LeetCode. The nice thing about LeetCode is that it has real life statistics for every problem. So here is a plot that I made. It's an interactive plot. So I'm going to step out of this and give you this link to play around with it. And then I'm going to open it up. Can everyone see my Chrome browser?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so this is around 2,500 LeetCode questions. I took the number of times that they were asked in the last 3 months. And you see this kind of Zipf-ian distribution, which is kind of, it lends itself well to a Pareto analysis. The top 80% is here, which looks like it's about 20% This is still a lot. This is like 400 questions, and we don't want to do 400 questions. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But zooming in, here's the top 80%. If you're following along, you can scroll across these. But yeah, we don't want to do 400 questions. So we instead leverage the fact that most of these questions are the same. You kind of just need to learn some patterns, and they reapply in multiple questions. And actually doing that kind of requires someone to annotate these. And thankfully, someone's already done that. And I'll show you their data set in a moment. But there's a grind 75 data set, and these are the questions that are involved in that. So yeah, even though you're not doing the highest, or you are doing the highest frequency problem, maybe not the second or third highest. And that's okay, because something else basically covers that. And maybe that question covers other parts of other questions as well. And this is the list of questions. It's 75 questions, as mentioned. They estimate that it takes 64 hours. So that's around 2 months, a little bit more, if you're doing 1 hour of practice a day, which should not be too hard. If you're doing it full time, you can probably breeze through this a lot quicker. This is done in a particular order. Obviously, there's a lot more easy problems up front and medium, and then the hard questions are later. I haven't actually finished it myself, but yeah. And they kind of build on from each other. So I can't think of a good example here. Time-based key value store is very similar to LRU cache in a way. So that one builds off that, and that one builds off, I mean, it's just using a dictionary, so it kind of builds off some and some other things like that. So it's ordered in a really nice way, and he describes it on his webpage that he did that by taking the popularity, the frequency, the companies, like how popular each company is, the likes. I guess some of the really disliked problems were maybe they had issues, maybe they had errors that were hard to work out and stuff like that. The topics covered and so on, and then found 200 questions for each of those lists. And then from each of those, he tagged them manually, like he looked at it and would look at the pattern rather than just the topic. And then decide, okay, does this carry enough weight to be in this pool of 75 questions? And then he ordered them based on ease and how much of this cascading effect they would get. So that's really handy that we have that. You could definitely do that programmatically as well. But yeah, it does need some kind of input from a human. Let me go back to my slides. Yeah, so that's again, 1 hour per day. That'll take around 2 months. Can we speed it up more? You know, you could do more of those questions, or I guess you could use like the grokking series of you know, lessons that would help you learn the patterns more quickly. But I think rote learning really works in this if you're going to repeat it. It's just we want to be able to repeat it quickly. And we want to be able to do that over time so that we never have to do this 64-hour practice session again, because we'll probably be changing jobs again, right? And so to do that, we use spaced repetition. Now this is this is pretty popular in a few fields like language learning, medical studies, law, but for some reason I haven't seen it much in computer science. I'm just wondering, like, would anyone mind, like, show of hands or typing in chat if they've seen this or not? My brother's seen it. Has anyone else? Maybe I should like use the polling feature. Yeah, not in CS, right? It's interesting. There is So this is totally different. This is totally aside from this workshop, but someone made, I can't remember what it's called. I'll try and find it. But some like learning REPL that would ask questions in a spaced repetitive pattern. So you could learn Python this way. I thought that was kind of cool, but I haven't used it yet. Anyway, spaced repetition. It comes from Hermann Ebbinghaus, who was a German psychologist and the first psychologist to study memory, systematically study memory and learning. And he discovered this in 1885, which is kind of surprising that we don't use it in CS that much. So yeah, it turns out that when you first learn something, and you probably intuitively know this, you forget it over time. And it actually drops quite rapidly to begin with, and then your retention will slowly not get better, but like just not deteriorate as quickly. And then as you review more often, this curve will actually get shallower and shallower. And that's pretty cool because that means we can increase these spaces or these intervals at which we review. And sorry, I changed it, increasing spaces. I should update that because now it's increasing intervals. But anyway, if you increase these intervals, you can do less work while maintaining a consistent minimum retention, like 80% or 90 or whatever you want. You can work it out. And so there's some corollaries from this. If you review too soon, you'll forget sooner because your curve will be shallow again. If you review too late, you will cross over this forgetting curve and you basically have to start again. And if you review at fixed intervals, then you're wasting time because you are going to have to review more often than you need to. And as a real world example, this is direct from my Anki, which I'll show you. This is the 75 LeetCode problems. I used the Anki simulator plugin to simulate what my workload will be over time, over the next 2 years. And sometime in January, I'm going to have to answer 16 problems on one day, which maybe sounds a little bit too much, but by then I'll have finished all the problems. And actually, as I do them over time, I found that I'm getting faster and faster at them. It usually takes me around 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes to answer LeetCode problems now, at least the ones I've seen. That's still a fair bit of time, but that's okay. But yeah, definitely towards the end of this, it's much sparser. These peaks are much lower. And as it goes on over the course of your career, there's going to be entire months where you don't have to practice at all. And you just do one problem or something like that. And that's way better than, again, this is way better than having to pick up all your practice from the start next time you want a job. Again, so SRS lets you have no thought. You just push a button, you get the optimal problem. That's where you have to start thinking and solving the problem. It also, if you're doing it every day, then it will give you these problems with the perfect timing so that you remember it as long as possible. Michael Nielsen, who's an AI researcher, was experimenting with Anki, and I guess he didn't show this, but he worked out for himself that he's spending 95% less time on learning things, on memorizing things after he's learned them, I mean. And looking around, I found other numbers like that, like it's 80% or 90 or 95. So it's around that range. And again, it's used in law, medicine, languages. It's surprising it's not used in CS. So let's use it. There's a lot of programs that do this. Anki is the most popular, I guess. It is kind of janky, but it's open source and has plugins, and you get to control your data. You can put any kind of data in there. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You're not backing yourself into a corner by using this, like if you're using something else. Yeah, so I highly recommend using Anki. But yeah, I'm going to show you how to set everything up the way I've got it set up. And then I'll give a walkthrough of how to use it. And then you can ask me questions. So I hope you have this workbook open because I'll be working from that. Oops. Okay. Cool. So does everyone, okay, everyone's in the workbook. That's good. Has everyone downloaded and installed Anki and then downloaded the deck that I made for the Grind 75 thing? Maybe I'll just do that. You can follow along. Okay, it seems like people have done it. Just in case. Here's my default. Oh wait, I need to see if people can see my Anki thing. It looks like they can. Okay. Cool. So here's my default Anki thing. If you click here, download the deck, which has the Grind 75 questions in order. That'll appear down here. You click that, you'll open it. Where's that tab? And it'll try and add around 2,500 LeetCode questions. Just click close, you'll have a LeetCode deck. And you're almost ready to start. Actually, you can just start right now if you wanted, but there's a few nice add-ons to add, which makes it much nicer to use this. So first of all, so we go to this add-ons table. If you go back to Anki and you hit Command-Shift-A, this is how you add add-ons, or you can go through the tools, add-ons, get add-ons menu. So you can click get add-ons, and then for any of these, you don't have to install them all or any of them if you don't want, but I recommend them. You just copy that code, paste it in there, and press OK. So I've already got these installed, so I won't be going through these. But as you're doing that, I'll explain why I like each of these. And I'm just gonna, so the heat map streaks, maybe it's better if I close this and go into my actual deck to demonstrate it better. Okay. Heat map streaks gives me this heat map streak thing. And as you can see, there's a long period of time, a couple of months where I didn't do any Anki. And then I wanted to get back into it. And so I reviewed 25 cards. That wasn't too bad. It was like 5 minutes a card or something. And then it's been really smooth ever since. And so like, I just draw attention to that because yes, you're meant to do it every day, but if you drop it and pick it back up, it's way better to do this than start over from scratch. But also like having these green dots, for some reason, it makes me want to do this every day. It's really upsetting when I have a gray dot and I still haven't done these today. So maybe I'll demo that in a moment. More overview stats gives you this all like this LeetCode thing. How many questions are new? How many am I learning? How many are mature? Basically, mature is like you'll try them again much, much later. How many have I not seen? How many suspended? So I've suspended 97% of LeetCode. But out of the non-suspended ones, I have learned 81% of that 75, those 75 questions. It estimates how long it'll take for me to get done. 14 days, that's based on me having one new question a day. So if you want to be faster, then do more new questions. Anki Simulator, here's how to run that once you've installed it. You click on a cog, you go to options. Oops, not options, sorry. You go to simulate. And what you want to do here is load options and performance. That actually bases it off your actual performance of cards. We don't want to include suspended new cards because that deck I gave you has all of the LeetCode problems. Most of them are suspended. We don't want to include those. you may or may not have overdue cards, just include them. If you haven't done any work on this, then you have 75 cards upcoming. So set that to 75 and then some period of time. So let's say 3 years about, then you click simulate and you get this chart. And you can kind of see this curve and how it's getting sparser and sparser over time. And it's only like, I mean, it's the scale is a little hard to see, but if you scroll along, you can see how many days between you actually just having to do one problem in 2023, for example, there. So that's quite handy, especially if you're configuring your settings, which we'll go through soon. Because it bases it on your settings, and then you can see, you know, will I just have a flat line and have to do a lot of problems? Did I mess up my settings a lot or not? So yeah, that's handy for that. Okay, advanced review bottom bar. Let me show you how I review. So here's a problem. I like to add the skip button. You probably shouldn't use it much, but some days I just really don't want to do a card. Maybe I'm tired and I just want to do the things that come to me easily, and so I'll skip it. And, you know, I recommend that because you don't want to have something that just is hard enough to make you not be able to develop the habit. If you do skip it and then you click out, it doesn't bury it or anything. It doesn't remove it. When you go back into it, you'll be able to do that question again. It just lets you move on to the questions that you want to do or you find easier. I don't use that very often, but it's there for when you feel like it. But also you want to disable the hard and easy buttons using this plugin. Because usually Anki has again, which means you got it wrong, hard, good, which means you got it right, and easy. And it's kind of like a bug, maybe not a bug, but you have to fiddle with a lot of settings to get hard and easy right. And I found just from practice before, I might do a question once or twice, and then I remember it really easily. So I'm like, okay, I click easy, and then I won't see that problem again until the year 2090. And I actually, when I looked at it a month later, I didn't remember the question. So I think it adds too much of a benefit to that. And the same with hard questions, like you're going to have to do those questions over and over. It's probably better to just use again and good. So I'll show you how to remove those in a bit. You still want to like reward yourself for getting the same question right over and over. So we add another thing called straight reward, which I'll talk about, but you can set it up so if you get the question right 3 times in a row, then it's the same as if you clicked easy. Hierarchical tags is optional, but what that does is in this deck that I created with the grind problems, here's all the tags. And instead of having a really messy tag thing, you just nest them like this. So you can look at just the free LeetCode questions or the paid ones. You can choose by company. So 23andMe, there's only one question in the past 3 months for some reason. Maybe I'm filtering by other things as well. But then we have the grind 75 problems and then the extended, because they have an extended set to 169, which you don't need to do, but it's just if you want it. And then by topic, if you want to filter by that. Although I don't recommend it. I recommend just doing it vanilla grind 75 base. These are yellow, by the way, because they are suspended. And to unsuspend them, you just right click and go to toggle suspend. Okay, so puppy reinforcement. If you like dogs, then you can install this, and every few correct cards, you get a picture of a puppy. You can actually customize this, so it could be cats or whatever you like. I don't have this one installed, but I really should at some point, just to give that really basal evolutionary, feedback to make me like doing this more. Okay, so that's all the plugins. let's go into, oh, wait, I'll just see if everyone's ready for me to go into the configuration. Should I continue, or is anyone still installing plugins? Cool. Yeah, I think the only one we need to configure anyway is advanced review bottom bar. So I maybe should have put that at the top. Everything else, you can just install it later. It's not really going to mess with anything. Okay, so oh yeah, so here's a bonus thing. It's not really a plugin, but one really nice thing that I use for Chrome, but if you click here, you can also get the Firefox version, is LeetHub. And you want to set LeetCode to old design. They recently updated their design, which I think breaks this, but you can change it to the old design. And when you do that, every time you submit a question, if you set LeetHub up, it'll commit it to a GitHub repository. And I'll show you mine. Where is that? Somewhere here. Okay. Here's mine. So yeah, it's just a bunch of these problems. If I go to TwoSum, for example, then I can look at the code that I submitted 15 hours ago. If I want to see how that's changed over time, I can click history. Let's see the very first version I submitted. It looks pretty much the same, of course, but this is kind of handy, like if you want to see if you're improving or if you ever want to reuse, like if you write something in LeetCode. I mean, since you're doing these problems over and over again, sometimes you end up with really nice solutions. So it's just nice to have these automatically there. And then later on, if you're kind of struggling, instead of looking at the discussion forum or the solution, you can just look at your own solution, which I think is better. Wait, where am I up to? Going back to here. So you don't have to install that, but it is really handy. Syncing, you can do that after the workshop, but it's a free backup system that'll back up all your plugins and your settings and your decks, so may as well use it. Okay, Anki settings. Let's configure the add-ons. So let me go back to the demo account that I set up. Oops, I opened my actual one. Okay, never mind, I'll do it here. So I'm clicking, I don't know if you can see my toolbar at the top. I'm clicking tools, then add-ons, and then advanced bottom bar, and then config. And so you should go to bottom bar buttons and click hide hard and hide easy and enable skip for the reasons that we talked about. And that's actually all you need to change in here. Just click apply. You might need to restart Anki after changing some settings. Yeah, it's pretty janky, but yeah. Now we want to change the scheduling. So you go to Anki preferences, click scheduling. All I recommend is disabling show next review time above answer buttons and show remaining card count. I find those distracting, like especially the review time. It makes me think, do I want to press good or do I want to press again? Because I can see that it's going to mess my time up. So don't even look at the time. Don't even show yourself that. Just, be able to listen to yourself and be like, okay, I didn't get that question right. Similar to remaining card count, like I might rush through things just because there's a few cards, or if there's a lot of cards, then I might just close the program. I don't recommend V3 scheduler. I don't really understand it yet, so I think it's fine to not use that. And I'm leaving it here, but I will open up the demo deck for that reason. Okay, so here's my LeetCode deck. So we've changed the preferences. V3 scheduling isn't enabled. Now we go to our deck options. So I set it to, I think 2 cards a day is great to begin with. I think the earlier questions in grind 75 are easy enough to do two a day, even in an hour. But then eventually at some point, yeah, they get kind of hard. So you might want to drop it down to 1. Or if you don't have a job and you are just trying to grind as much as possible, maybe 5. But just remember that you're going to have to like repeat these often. So 5 today and 5 tomorrow, plus the 5 that you did yesterday. So it kind of stacks a lot. So just keep it kind of low and do it like slow and steady. It's only 64 hours anyway. So yeah. So maybe start off with 2 and set the reviews to a high number, more than what is in the deck, because you don't want it to artificially limit you when you can do the reviews. If you don't have much time, just do a couple of reviews and close the program. That's fine. It'll try and show you those reviews the next day. But if you say, oh, I only want to do like 10 reviews or 20 reviews, then if you have 50 reviews, then it's only going to stop at 20. And that means you're not really using the algorithm to its full potential. The new cards, I think the default is like 1 minute and 10 minutes in 1 day or something. Anki kind of expects you to have small cards, like just quick, like what's the word? What fill in the blank kind of thing. LeetCode is definitely slower than those, right? So for this deck, I mean, you can, if you have other decks, you can like clone these settings and save a LeetCode setting and a default setting and stuff. But for LeetCode, probably 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something for when you get the card wrong. That's what the first number is. And then if you get the card right the first time, this is for a new card, it'll show you again in a day, and then again in 3 days, and then again in 7 days. If you get it wrong, I think it drops you back 1 level. Maybe applies some penalty. It's kind of esoteric. It's kind of confusing, but this is working for me so far. What do I want to say about that? After you finish this step, it'll be considered learnt, and it will apply ease rewards and stuff like that. So it should start growing. The interval should start growing exponentially. So you don't want to just have a couple of these. Like if it takes you longer to learn that, you should have a few more. And if you're finding that these cards are shooting off into the future too much, then add another one. And I like to double these intervals every time, just because that just makes sense to me in theory. But again, this isn't a science. You should pay attention every now and then, go to browse and have a look at when these are due. So I haven't done any questions here, but let's pretend this is the due thing. And maybe you see a problem in like 2050 and you realize, oh, I don't know how to do that problem. And that's in 2050. So you probably don't want to do that. So you go back and you tweak these. It's different for everyone. It's different for your biochemistry, your neurochemistry, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Then the graduating interval just means it'll do it for this many days again after you graduate. So I don't know, you could use 14 or 7 or something like that. Whatever, like either this or double this. This is all very hand wavy. I'm sorry about that. I don't think I wrote anything here, but you definitely want to do oldest cards first, because I added them to the grind 75 deck in order of grind 75. And that way you can just go new card, blah, blah, blah. You want to change your timer to 3600. So it's 60 minutes instead of the 60 seconds that they have by default. And, that's a normal interview time. I think most of these you don't really have to worry about. except for the rewards, since we installed straight rewards. I think this is where you go after 3 problems, then increase the ease, which means every time you get it right 3 times, it'll increase the ease, which means the step goes larger. So that's making up for us not having an easy button. It's statistically saying, yeah, this is easy. And then you save that. I think I missed something. Let me go back to preferences, scheduling. Okay, so if you're not using V3 scheduler, I need to add this to the doc. You also want to say that you are showing new cards after reviews. The reviews are the most important cards. New cards, it doesn't matter, you haven't learned them yet, so you can learn them tomorrow if you like. But reviews, they are about to be forgotten. So always prioritize reviews before new cards. Let me just update the doc there. All right, 1 second. All right, now it's time for me to demo. Since you're starting on this problem to some, I don't want to give away the answer. So I'm going to switch back to my deck. So every day I come in here, I have another deck, so I do those problems as well. But then I go to LeetCode and I click Study Now. And then I do this, hang on, subsets. Okay. I click this, it'll open up in my browser. It has code there. This is, okay, so usually when you finish, you should click reset to default code definition. If anyone knows how to do that automatically, please let me know. I always just try to not look at the code and click that if I can see out the corner of my eye that there is code. Subsets, okay, so I know that the result, this is all rote memory as well, but I can use this for any question that is similar. We want the empty set, and then for every element, we basically add it to every element in the result. So for X in nums, result, we add this as some temporary result plus X on the end for R in result. So we'll test that out. Looks like I got the right answer. I click submit and I got the right answer. So this is where you'd go before you continue, you'd reset it so you don't see that next time. If I didn't know what to do though, I'd try the question for maybe 30 minutes or something. At that point, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll probably go to discuss. A lot of people say, don't do this, don't read solutions. But since we're planning to do it again anyway, I think it's okay. I mean, it's basically the same as doing a course on how to do these problems. And then look through here, like, okay, Python, easy to understand. Find something that resonates with you, try to understand it, type it in, play around with it, make it your code, submit it. And then when you come back to Anki, because you didn't get it right, you had to look, you would click again. And then when it comes up again, hopefully you can do it by yourself this time. But at least you went through that process of looking at the solutions and learning about it and digesting it. I did actually know that one, so I'm going to mark it as good. Also, my settings are kind of messed up. I did say to disable these anyway. Yeah, and then I'll go to the next thing. If I don't like this problem, then I'll skip, like I mentioned. Yeah, I guess that's everything. I am surprised at how long this took. I was going to ask people to spend like 20 minutes or 15 minutes doing their own thing. But I don't think we have time for that. Hopefully you could do this after we finish. Let's go back to Keynote. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful. Does anyone have any questions? Or comments or anything? Raymond says, I haven't been using LeetCode for 5 years now, but I might start from there. I'm glad to hear that. I definitely I found, that's all right. Thank you. I found coming back and trying to do LeetCode, kind of insurmountable. LeetCode does have those curated problem lists, but I don't know how they chose them. There's a lot of problems. They have a lot of those curated lists that don't completely overlap. I don't know if they're chosen using principles or data or what. So, and if you don't do that, then it's kind of hard, where do I even start? And I think it really helps to use Anki to just tell you, okay, do this problem next. Because LeetCode has lists, but it won't make you repeat things. So yeah, I found this, and with those plugins, I found this actually addictive. And some days I spend hours doing LeetCode by accident. So yeah. Cool. I'm glad you got something out of it, Raymond. Hopefully everyone else did too. If you have any questions later, feel free to email me or contact me. I think you can all get in touch. Yeah, so thanks so much for coming. Again, this was a preview of a course that I'm developing. I intend to run that in the end of January. It's going to be 1.5 weeks. It's going to cover the above things, but maybe a little bit more interactive, maybe more project-based. But I'm also going to talk about system design, behavioral interviews, and negotiation. Not sure about how to include these, but system design for sure can be handled in spaced repetition in Anki, and I show people how to do that. We'll also have co-working sessions where we work together and we share ideas and what's making us struggle. Q&A sessions and one-on-one sessions with me. Doesn't have to be about the course content. If you want to be taught a certain algorithm or a way of solving things, then just schedule a session with me. I'm charging $449 for this. This is the introductory course price. This is my first cohort. I think the price will go up as the course gets better. But because you came to the workshop, I'm giving everyone a $100 off coupon that's only valid until Monday if you want to join. Other than that, you don't have to join. You can sign up to the mailing list and I'll be sending material about this, or you can contact me on Twitter or on email. Awesome. Thanks very much, everyone.